There is a silent act of liberation and resistance happening in rural communities across America. One not rooted in just protest alone, but one rooted in healing. For generations and generations, our people, all of our people, have really struggled with the impacts of historical trauma. And truly what that looks like in the rural communities. I'm here to talk to you today about healing as infrastructure. Throughout my experiences living in the rural communities, it's been very, very evident that there's something that needed to be done. I was born and raised in Queens, New York, where the roads are narrow, cracked, a lot of potholes, and then found my way to the amazing small community that I live in rural Texas, where a lot of the roads that I travel are still gravel, they're unpaved. And what I learned in both places was that our cars rattle every step of the way, and it rattles your patience as well. But over the months and over the years, there's promises to fix the roads. They're repaved, they're smoothed over, but consistently, it cracks again. And that's because nobody is paying attention to the foundation underneath the roads. So if you may, take a moment with me and to look through the space. Look around at the people that are here with us today. And I'm gonna give you and not just the people that you came with, but actually pay attention to those who are in this space, who are sharing air with you. We are all sharing the same air. And we've actually traveled the same roads to get here. But we are not all standing on the same ground. So I would like for you to take a moment to really think through that and consider all of the systems that we live within, from the ways that we interact with healthcare, our education systems, the parks and playgrounds that you and your children play in. All of that is built upon a foundation of unhealed trauma. So over the last decade, I have evolved my career. Living in the rural communities, I've created a career not only being a licensed professional counselor, but a rural mental health strategist. And that was birthed out of my experience with building community collaboratives around mental health that really tried to understand, or we sought out to understand, what does that mean for diverse populations? And consistently, it was these glaring red lights and just moments of, there's some undertones here. There's something happening that nobody is talking about because we're not sharing stories with each other, right? And so when we talk about historical trauma, it is not just about what happened to my grandmother, what happened to your grandfather. It is deeper than that. It's about the mindsets. It's about the mindset, it's about the memories in our bodies, in our spaces, in our places. Historical trauma is the collective, massive, sustained acts, practices, assaults on whole communities. From the transatlantic slave trade to war, drugs, displacement, systemic exclusion. And this pain is not just inherited, it is actively reinforced in the systems that we interact with every single day. So, what does that look like? It can look like unacknowledged pain, disconnection from one another, outdated expectations that we have of our relationships and the people in this room. It could also look like educational differences because of our educational systems. It could look like medical mistreatment and misdiagnoses, land and housing practices that are a lot of times unfair. And if you can imagine, say in a community where there was housing built on floodplains, while others were built on solid rock. And we don't have to imagine that because it actually happened and happens. Some other ways that historical trauma may show up in our communities, it's income inequality, exclusionary governance, increased mental health challenges for all of us because this impacts every single one of us, and increase in drug and violence in our communities. So, we're not just building programs, plans, partnerships. We are actually overlooking the infrastructure that's underneath all of that that needs to be acknowledged. And I wouldn't be me if I didn't try to level set us and ensure that we all are on the same level of understanding. When I talk about infrastructure, I'm talking about the systems and the organizations and all of that surrounds the way that we live. And so examples of infrastructure could be the way that we bank, our educational systems, hospital systems, playgrounds, our transportation systems, our water infrastructure, our downtown areas. I live in a beautiful small community and we have one of the most amazing downtown areas. All of that is the infrastructure that's around us, right? And that's another way for us to understand this from a public health perspective that I also would like for you to understand is the social determinants of health. The social determinants of health, or now a little bit more politically correct, is to say the non-medical drivers of health. And that is another example of all of the systems that are around us and that affect the way that we live and that we interact and our well-being. And examples of that are the social and community context, our neighborhoods and built environment, which is parks, neighborhoods, playgrounds, our healthcare system, educational systems, economic systems, and not just these systems, but actually our equal access to those and the quality of that access. So I don't want to skirt over the individual impacts that historical trauma has on us because it's very real and it's common for all of us, right? And so that could look like anxiety, depression, all of the above. But we need to move beyond the individual coping skills. They are still necessary. I am a therapist, so I need to say that. They're still necessary, but we need to move towards collective repair. Right? And that's what I've built my career on, is to ensure that we are actually focused on the collective repair and the individual as well. And we can do that becoming architects and engineers of our own stories, in our collective stories. So my answer to that, it seems like it's been generation after generation that we've been dealing with the same thing. But the answer is quite simple, but we just have to be really, really committed to learning some things that may shake us. But healing is infrastructure. And I am proposing that we need to see healing as a prerequisite to progress. It's a precondition. If we continue to push that away and to ignore history and our stories, we continue to repeat the same cycles, right? And so understanding that as the unshakable foundation, also digging deeper in our relationships with each other. And that means scaling deep. And so instead of collecting people and experiences, how about we go deeper with the ones that we have currently? Also, remaining agile in our abilities to learn and our desire to learn. Right? And so one of my co-hosts, or co-speakers, talked about the physical agility, but how about agility in our learning? And that oftentimes comes with learning things that are uncomfortable. So, healing is infrastructure, and it necessitates systemic realignment and repaving. So imagine a city's budget where rest was funded, right? Strategic plans. I know some city folks that are in here, so I had to say that. Strategic plans that include reconciliation and repair. That is how we can get to a place of systems realignment and repaving. And to understand that healing is not just a decor, it is actually the main road that we need to see in a different way and at the same level of all of the other things and systems around us. So what does that look like? How can we become architects of our collective healing? Number one is acknowledgement. There's conversations about it, but it can be uncomfortable. And so that comes with acknowledging our history, our shared history, also the history that may be different depending on your group, affinity group. Also telling the truth, but building trust. And so that is something that has been a paramount to all of the work that we do throughout the rural communities of our areas, So truth telling is the groundwork. Number two is redesigning our structures, right? And so that comes with being innovative and reimagining what is possible. Also, it comes with desire and a need for us to really be able to see the resources and how we are sharing out those resources, which may be different from what it looks like currently. And so redesignating resources and funding, our connections with each other and connecting others that typically are not connected with others is really essential for that. And lastly, investing in collective healing. And that is seeing belonging as a metric. And so a lot of times, especially in public health and community health, there are metrics of how good are we doing in what we're doing right now? How do we measure that? Including belonging in that metric system is essential for us to be able to say, how are the connections, partnerships? Are we actually scaling deep and learning from one another? And here's some simplified things that we can really pay attention to also. And simplified healing for groups, organizations, and others is for us to normalize check-ins with each other. Also, pausing strategy for rest. It's huge, it's essential. We are always on the go. We're always moving to the next person, to the next thing. But if we can actually pause and allow that to be a part of our plans, we can go a lot further together. Now, put it in there again, belonging as a metric. You have no clue how important belonging is and how far it could take us. Also, prioritizing co-creation at every single level. So how do we build things for everyone if everyone is not there to be able to have a say about what that actually looks like? So the good news is that we are not on this road alone. We need to own the road. Again, we're here to talk about owning it. So reclaiming, reimagining, and redesigning our collective healing and our collective processes. And be able to own our own narratives. We've inherited a damaged infrastructure, but we do not have to pass that on to the next generation. Right. So I ask all of you to really think through, what road have you inherited? And what repairs are necessary for all of us to collectively move to a different level together? And I want to leave you with that for you to really think through that. So let's own it. Let's own the redesign, the reimagining process, and heal our infrastructure together. Thank you.